Before the pod gets started, go ahead and leave us a rating on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever else you listen to the pod. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Yellow Squared podcast. And it's just myself and James this week. Good afternoon, James. Welcome back to the pod, mate.
Hello, mate. Yeah, very good. How are you doing?
Oh, not too badly. Finally, 3 points for the Golden Boys. Not
Yeah,
not the best performance, but we got there eventually, and a lovely finish from Asprey to sort of carry us over the line.
yeah,
So,
yeah, very good.
as far as Watford goes, I'm a little bit more spirited this week than I've been in the past few weeks in terms of a result. But we'll get into the
Yes,
performance in a few
and
minutes.
we also have to acknowledge that you got your predictions right.
Of course, yeah, I was going to bring that
Four
up.
points from the last three games,
Yeah,
and you got all the results correct. So fair play, mate.
yeah,
A fair play.
yeah. And if you sort of look back through the last podcast, you'll be naturally assuming that my next three are correct as well. So
Yeah, too
I've
right.
just got the ball knowledge. That's what I've got. So you didn't watch the game yesterday, James.
No, I didn't know.
I imagine you'd have been following it somewhere via social media or just
I
generally
was
looking through Twitter or whatever. Um,
I was scrolling through the BBC Sport app,
yeah,
and I think like anybody else that was following remotely without watching, you probably got the impression that it was a pretty poor game, as I did
yeah.
when at halftime I think it was 0-0. We'd had two shots. Sheffield Wednesday had one shot, and not one of them had been on target. So I think that basically told me everything I needed to know about how the game's going.
Yeah, it was just very slow. It just seemed like we were happy to go at one pace. They were happy to sort of sit off. They had a couple of chances
Yeah,
from some set pieces, but other than that, they didn't really trouble us at all in the first half. I mean, likewise, we didn't trouble them at all, really. It was just very poor. Distribution from
mm.
the centre halves was absolutely terrible. Um, Fullbacks, Lewis didn't have a great game, and neither did Ngakia. Um, it
Where we said that before.
no, no, but yeah, I generally try and avoid being too scathing or negative, but it just was really poor. I think it could be up there with one of the worst performances this season. Um,
That's really interesting
just the first
for a
half,
win as
anyway.
well.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was sort of one of those where even when you score, it's a little bit of like a more of a exhale of relief rather than like a pure
Mm.
happiness. But yeah, the first half was just very slow, just basically pointless to be honest. No team really created any chances. We had that one break where Ngakia sort of flashed it across the face of goal, but even then, like, there's no way that either of those would get onto the end of it. Just the final ball was pretty rubbish, and it was just it just felt like we had no second gear, and both teams were just content to do nothing and get a point from the game. So that was the first half, and then the second half we came out under some pressure. Sheffield Wednesday gave it a go, to be fair to them, in the first sort of 10-15 minutes of that half. Then obviously the penalty incident. So I saw it live and I was a bit like, oh, you know what, that probably could be a penalty. And then I've seen a few replays since then, and I think you've got to give credit to the officials there because it takes a lot of I can't think of the word, but it takes a lot of
Own.
that is the word,
It
cahoons,
takes a
yeah,
lot of
to
bottle.
for a PG audience, yeah, to you know, to reverse the decision in front of the Wednesday fans, and I'm sure that
Yeah.
that linesman would have got a lot of abuse for the rest of the game. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I've got to give some credit for that. Just on that decision, James,
Yeah, yeah,
penalty or
yeah,
no penalty?
yeah. No penalty. Because Lewis clearly takes the ball off the guy, knocks out for a corner, and then there is contact, but I'm pretty confident that that contact happens after Lewis has knocked the ball out. So
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
I think for me, judging by the level of reaction from the Watford players, I have a feeling that's probably what swayed the officials to have a bit of a chat because they were immediately furious that the penalty had been given. It's tough, innit?
Yeah.
It's live football. I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't have expected that to have happened in
No,
the
no, not
EFL,
at
that they
all.
went and had a chat and overturned it. But I think that's kind of what we're after, right? That's the kind of refereeing that we want to see.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
the ref was confident enough to make a decision, which is what you want. But then he was also confident enough to take a moment,
Mm.
go and speak to his assistant, and then come to the correct decision, which is what we want to see. And it's easy for us to say because we were on the right end of that decision. If it had been Martin's winning a penalty down the other end and it was overturned, I think you'd have been disappointed. But when you sort of look back at it, you'd be like, okay, well, the right
Yeah.
decision was made in the end.
Well, I think it's just a case of one of those, like, if if it was us, for example, you're just appealing for a penalty for a goal, really. And I don't think any Sheffield Wednesday fans could really sort of argue against that. I think they're just looking for a goal, looking for a win in the championship, and
Absolutely, they're desperate, aren't they?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's natural, but I'm pleased that they finally came to the right decision. I thought generally the ref actually had fairly good game yesterday. Obviously, no
Hmm.
one's ever perfect, but as far as EFL refs go in the championship, he definitely didn't have a poor game. So that's obviously a massive positive for us, and just for the championship as a whole. But yeah,
Hmm.
I think the decision was absolutely right. Um, and like you said, he does make some contact on the player, but there's enough.
Yeah.
I think there's enough of the ball because he gets a lot of the ball to clear it out for a goal
Yeah.
kick. It's not like the ball's just sort of run out of its own accord. It's all Lewis's intervention has put it out there, um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
which probably makes you think like. But even in the moment, like you said, it was a lot of angry reaction from the Watford players. It probably could have influenced it a little bit, but I don't think they would have reacted in that way if it was say Stonewall penalty, for example.
No, their players tend to know, don't they?
Yeah,
They know when something's happened and when someone's milking it, I think,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
tends to give it away.
yeah. I think
So you what you? Oh, go on, mate. Sorry.
sorry, I was just gonna say I think it was interesting that sort of Lewis just turns around and is just confused by the referee as
Yeah,
as the
I
decision's
think
made.
that was pretty key, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Although, dare I say it, Lewis just for me in a Watford shirt has generally looked confused.
yeah,
So
yeah,
might be might be, might be a style of play.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Uh, so you watched the game,
yeah.
um, and I didn't. So I'm going to wrestle the reins off you a little bit, mate. I'm going to
Okay.
ask you some questions and your
Oh,
thoughts, if you don't
crikey,
mind.
crikey, in the hot seat.
Um, we'll go relatively quick fire,
Yeah.
uh, if you don't mind.
No, of course.
And yeah, we'll just kind of try and unpick some of the things that I feel like I picked up on just from sort of socials and the highlights that I've watched subsequently. But
Mm.
what did you think about the lineup and the team?
I was a bit surprised that Livermore started the game because I think
Mm,
when I saw he started and played well against Cardiff, I just assumed, maybe he would come in for away games to sort of level the
mm,
uh, level the pitch off a bit more, be a more level-headed player, safe pair of hands at the back, just sort of to tidy up and get people going.
yeah,
So I was a little bit surprised that that he was brought in to start, but in all honesty, I thought he had another really good game. He showed some
yeah,
really strong leadership skills out on the pitch. Really tried to get some players going in the first half when, in reality, it looked like quite a lot of them just didn't want to be there. So I've got to give that to him. He loves a challenge. He got himself about the pitch. Um, despite a lot of speculation, a lot of people saying that his legs don't have it anymore, but I think he got around the pitch well. He mopped up. He's very composed on the ball. Rarely makes a bad pass, apart from that one where he absolutely shanked it into the Graham Taylor upper from about
okay,
10 meters. So, but apart from that, yeah, he was a solid pair of hands just at the base in the midfield. Interesting that he brought Loser back in.
hmm
I think his performances recently would have reflected maybe starting on the bench, and I don't think people would have been mystified by that decision. But as we've said so often, he's got the quality in him. Um, yeah, very pleased to see Sema back on the bench as well. That was brilliant, and he obviously came on and absolutely turned the tide of the game. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think everywhere else was perfect. I'd probably choose those players, particularly Baah over Rajovic at the moment.
Hmm.
Baah is a very willing runner, as I've said, and yeah, I really liked his his movement yesterday. Didn't necessarily come off for him in terms of in front of goal, but he didn't really get. I struggle to remember one chance that came by his way. So
Yeah.
in that event, what can he do? At the end of the day, he's done a lot of running for the team, and that's all you can ask for from a striker that doesn't have any service.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Cool.
was relatively pleased with the lineup. Yeah,
Nice, happy days. That's interesting as well. A lot of people, I think, agreed with you that Livermore had another good game,
mm.
and maybe that is Ismail sort of starting to imprint his stamp on his starting lineup. Maybe I know Sierralta had a potential injury, so that might have swayed
Yeah,
the decision making. But I think if it's still needed, if you're going to have sort of five other attacking players going forward,
yeah.
you do need that anchor in midfield. So I think to give a little bit of balance back. So I wouldn't be surprised if Livermore continues in the lineup
No, I wouldn't either.
in the next couple of weeks.
No, I wouldn't either.
Cool. All right. Um, Hoot and Porteous, lots of discussion on the pod recently about those two
Yeah,
and how they've somewhat struggled. How were they yesterday?
I think they struggled again in the first half. The distribution is really something that we sort of really praised Hoot for at the start of the season, and now it just seems like he can't really hit a pass. Several times, as I was just saying before the pod, he absolutely lasered a ball at Lewis, and I'm sure Lewis has a great first touch, but I'm not sure what you can do when the balls come at you from about 80 miles an hour from about 10 meters away.
Oh,
So that happened a couple of times. They just kind of give the ball away quite a lot, and it's quite nervy. And strangely enough, I know this probably might not be a popular opinion at Watford, but yesterday I was fairly comfortable with the ball going back to Backman, and I think that's probably says something. Maybe the first time this season that the ball's actually gone back to him, and I was like, you know what, I trust him to make a sensible pass here, whether that be to
okay.
either centre back or to one of the fullbacks. So that's a positive for me. Um, but yeah, I think overall those two had a tough first half, but I think everyone
Mm,
in the Watford colours had a tough first half, and then in the second half they weathered the storm well. Hoot and Porteous. Most of the stuff was coming from either side, so the fullbacks is probably where a couple of the issues lied. Um, but yeah, they were fairly robust in the second half, and they definitely grew into the game. But I think the whole of Watford grew into the game. But I think the most frustrating thing for me is just that start will be punished by a better
yeah,
a better team
that's the
with more
worry, isn't it?
quality. Yeah,
Frustrating. Um, Three more questions for you, mate. So, but they might wrap into each other. But I'm going to start with this one.
hmm
The subs.
yeah,
Two subs at half time.
yeah, yeah.
Kone on for Basharu and Arajevic on for Bio at half time. Then we had Sema come on for Lewis on the 55-minute mark.
Mm,
And then we had Chak for Tadze and Aspria come on for Loser and Ince, respectively, later on into the second half.
yeah,
Lots of people talking about how much those substitutes changed the game.
yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I think the substitutes won us the game. Really, not necessarily the first set of substitutes, but the sort of Sema for Lewis and
Mm,
Aspria for Ince. Those kind of, and obviously Chakvetadze as well. Those subs won us the game in my opinion. Sema,
mm,
an absolute breath of fresh air. He knows how to attack. The ball
yeah,
comes to him. He's got a clear plan. He will take it down the line, get to the byline, and put the ball in the box.
very
Aspria, yeah,
straightforward football,
yeah,
isn't
yeah.
it, for him?
No, but it's all it needs in the championship. Honestly, I feel
Yeah,
like people
yeah.
try and overcomplicate things. Too much footwork and all this stuff, and trying to walk the ball into the net. When in reality, I think goals just come from cutbacks, really, from the byline,
Which has
or
been a great,
and
yeah,
putting the ball into the box. And I don't think, as I've said, I don't think Watford do that enough. Um, but yeah, Rajovic coming on again, he didn't really do a lot, and I think what is apparent to me is he is desperate for a goal. I think he really, really wants a goal, and he probably needs a goal as well, just to give him some confidence back. But
yeah,
there's a few times where we sort of break, and it's sort of like a 3-on-3, and the person with the ball, Rajovic kind of gravitates towards them, and is almost on top of them
uh,
when he should be peeling round the
yeah,
back post or getting in between the defenders, getting behind the defender, and then running towards the front post just to get the ball in the net. And I'm not really sure what drives him to do that, but it does feel a little bit like when the ball's in and around the edge of the box and there's some pace on the attack, he's almost on top of the person with the ball, whether that be Martins or Ince or whatever, and it's very
mm,
difficult for them to then make a decision when in reality there's probably three defenders around them, and that's another thing that Rajovic could be doing. If he's on top of them, that's just another defender that's in the way. So if he
yeah,
could, make a move somewhere else that drags a defender with him, opens up for a shot or opens up for a cross, anything. But it just felt for me like he came on and it was just a little bit almost in the way. No, and I'm trying not to be too
yeah.
negative about him. I do want to say
I'll go for it, mate.
I
Go.
do want to say sorry that he did seem to get about the pitch a little bit better. So maybe he's just
Okay,
adjusting to the speed of the game and getting some more fitness in there. So I'll give that to him. His pressing was a little bit better, but yeah,
that's good.
overall I wouldn't have taken Baah off in my opinion.
Yeah, that seemed interesting for me for 45 minutes. Bayer's clearly got the engine to go a bit longer, so I
Yeah,
wonder whether or not there was something in that substitution.
yeah,
My concern with Rajovic is I just see so many highlights of the ball coming up towards him, or him having to challenge a central defender,
mm,
and the number of times that ball just goes over his head and
yeah.
he misses his header is not good for a big guy. Anyway,
No.
moving on. What what is the did you see a style of play in there yesterday?
Well,
Did
what
we look, do we look like we had a plan? It feels for me like we're slowly slipping away from where we were at the start of the season.
I think the start of the season to now is two completely different styles of football. It feels like you
Mm,
know it seemed a bit again like yes, there's sort of a philosophy to play out from the back, but there's just no structure in the middle or going forward when you're in the attacking third. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of philosophy other than just sort of move the ball about, have a lot of possession, and
mm,
maybe try and make a chance every 5 minutes or something. But it just seems like we're a world away from the start of the season where high intensity, high press, basically just be annoying and win the ball back and score goals, and that's what you want to see, really, isn't it? That gets the
yeah,
crowd going after 5 minutes when you've scored and all the players are up, the adrenaline's high, and it just feels very flat. It felt very flat
yeah,
yesterday. The ball was moving at one pace, very slowly, and there just wasn't a lot of wasn't a lot of chances created. And I said this last season when we were struggling in front of goal on the pod. I was just saying that the ball moved side to side so often, and it would stay one pace, and we would never get out of that first gear. And then all of a
yeah,
sudden, it would shift. There'd be like 10 seconds where the ball would move quick, and then we'd be through them. And if you can think back to that 3-2 win we had over West Brom at home last season, I just
hmm
vividly remember the first sort of 20 minutes being absolutely dire, very slow paced, and then
yeah, yeah,
Mario Gaspar of all people sort of turned the speed up, and then we scored from it. And I just remember thinking, like, if
yeah,
we attack like this every time, just slow it down a little bit, then speed it up. No defense can keep up with that. I find it
Yeah.
so easy to defend against when you're just moving the ball from side to side. And I appreciate the stats look great. We have the ball a lot, even when we're away from home. But it's too slow for me. And no, in answer to your question, I can't really recognise
Mm,
a a distinctive style of play. No.
that's a bit of a worry. So I suppose, and might have led the witness a little bit here, but I've done my best. Done my best lawyer impression here with my final question. Does Do you think then that the win yesterday is papering over the cracks,
Oh, that is a good
and that
question.
there, and that there is that there are problems with the football at the moment?
Well, in all honesty, I think it's a. I mean, as diplomatically as possible, I think it is a mix of many different things. I suppose the overall performance probably didn't deserve a win yesterday. We had a lovely passage of play which led to a really quality goal which separated the two
Yes,
teams.
yes.
Other than that, I wouldn't say the football deserved a win. Um, at least not before the 60th minute from Watford's point of view. However, I do think that we are low on confidence right now. Um, we just had a lot of losses, haven't won a game for a little while, maybe 5, 6 games.
His first win in six, I think.
Yeah, so I think naturally the confidence is going to be low when we haven't really scored a lot of goals in recent weeks, and we've suffered a lot of losses in that time period. We got bullied away at Leeds and bullied away at Sunderland, and I think that naturally has an effect on the team morale. Um,
Yeah,
but what I was pleased to see, yesterday the scenes at the final whistle, everyone was together, and the team spirit seemed to be looking
yeah.
looking better, and I think whilst it was a bit of a paper over the cracks in terms of we got a win but it wasn't great. I think there is something to build on for sure, and there are positives to take out of it.
Fabulous. Good to end on a little bit of positivity there, mate. Much appreciated. It's
Yeah,
always
yeah.
nice.
I actually
And I actually agree with you there. I do agree with you. I think we've said so many times at the start of the season we didn't get the result that we probably deserved. So it does all balance itself out a little bit. And I
mm,
think I know we're getting ahead of ourselves a bit here. But when you look at the table as it is, Swansea and Millwall up next. If by some miracle we do go and win both of those games, um, all of a sudden I think the table looks very, very different. It's so congested and bunched up and tight. I mean, I'm looking at a
yeah,
table now. There's 5 teams on 17 points, and we're on 13 points. We're not far behind. We're not far behind that. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but
yeah,
5 teams on 17 points. Um, I think the mood lifts around the club if we just string a bit of form together. And I think the fixture list is conducive to that over the next couple of weeks. So fingers crossed that we can just take that boost, that we can go and win games, we can grind it out, and that we can start to play some football.
yeah, 100%. And I think we kind of got a little bit unlucky in terms of the other results that happened in the championship yesterday, as far as the league table goes, didn't we? Because obviously we're 19th now. Even despite
Yeah,
having a win, we only moved up one place. And then I look at the
yeah,
table, and it's a bit like, well, everyone around us won. So it's a little bit
yeah.
frustrating that we didn't jump up a little bit further with that win. But ultimately, I think there is a little bit of a positive trajectory that we can target for. Whether we'll reach that
Yeah,
or not, I couldn't tell you. Um, so James, I did just want to ask a question and sort of
go for it, mate.
go for a
Yes.
little statement of my own as well. So obviously you've been to a couple of games this season
Yeah,
and you sit in the Elton John stand. What I did notice,
I do.
um, a couple minutes before kickoff yesterday, as I was watching on Hive Live, that how empty the Elton John stand looked, and
Mm,
I think a lot of Watford fans, uh, as you said last week, we're all just a little bit fragile, and I think a lot of Watford fans are a little bit tired of going to Watford at the moment. A little bit tired of going and seeing
Yeah.
bad performances. People are generally quite negative in the stands as well, so I think that can have a bit of an impact as well. But I just remember thinking back to the 1-1 draw at home to Rotherham in January last season, and I watched the highlights for some reason the other day, and I actually couldn't believe how full the Elton John stand was even then. It was
Mm.
crazy. Like it was literally like full all the way around, and yesterday before kickoff, it looked half empty. Like towards either end, there was absolutely no one sat there. Everyone
Yeah.
was sort of in the middle. But as somebody that goes to games in midweek and tries to get to as many as you can, do
Mm.
you notice that the Elton John stand is a little bit emptier now, or has it not really changed?
No, absolutely. I have noticed it and definitely spoken about it with Nick and when we go and watch. The ground is emptier
Mm.
than it has been recently. And it's not just the Surround John stand. You sort of see it in the family stand as well.
Oh
And
yeah, for sure.
yeah, the Rookery and the Graham Taylor are kind of pretty much as they've always been. But yeah, it does feel a lot. It does feel like the attendances are dropping off a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we touched on it with the other James from the Watford Way last
yeah,
week as well. I think the problem that we had is that there's been such a malaise and a um, I don't know, difficult atmosphere around watching Watford
mm,
for the last 3 or 4 seasons, and when you extract the promotion season, which was behind closed doors effectively, we've not seen Watford play well and win consistently for quite some time, and I think it's just been really tough for Watford fans lately. Um, and I think we're just waiting for the team or the guys out on the pitch to give us a spark to get behind.
yeah,
And I think that's, it's giving people a decision. It's like, well, I could go and spend 40 quid to go and watch Watford this Saturday, or I could go and do something else that, I know I'm going to enjoy, or,
yeah, yeah,
we're basically giving fans the opportunity to not come and watch the football because there might be better things to do. Which it sounds awful to say.
yeah, yeah,
I'd never turn down an opportunity to go and watch Watford because I love the whole experience and
mm,
going back to Vicarage Road all the time. But that has to be the case because I know for a fact,
yeah,
because I try and buy tickets when I try and buy tickets, that I think a lot of the people that don't turn up are season ticket holders
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, who have a season ticket and then they decide not to go for a game and then they're not re-gifting the ticket back to the clubs to sell because plenty of times in recent years where I've had to squeeze into a corner of the stadium, but then you look around and you think, oh, there's seats all over the place available. But yeah, so
yeah,
to kind of go back to your question and just to round it off, yeah, I do think that the attendances are dropping off, um, and I think it's a mix of what's been served up on the pitch and just kind of the general feeling around the club at the moment that is kind of putting people off coming.
yeah. That's very true, I think. And like you said, obviously, I would never turn down the chance to go and watch Watford because generally I don't get to go to that many games in a season. But I think if you're a season ticket holder or somebody that goes every week, who lives in Watford, and it's just one of the things that's very easy for you to do, I can understand why people aren't bothered. If it's wet and miserable and cold and the
Mm,
football's rubbish and the atmosphere's not been as good as it has been in recent seasons, I can't blame people for wanting to go and do something else that like you said, they'll definitely
yeah.
enjoy, rather than going
And
to Watford and being miserable for an hour and a half.
And that's why, just as a slight side note, that's why I think sort of your song hasn't picked up
Yeah,
in the ground. Not because people aren't behind it, but I just think that people aren't. They just don't feel together.
no,
It
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
feel like it's bringing everybody together, and that is set. in my opinion, now on the pitch. There's only so much that the club can do, and there's only so much the fans can do, really. If you want to sort of start that anthem or that kind of whole club mentality, then you've got to have something to get behind and believe in. And I just don't think we're serving that up at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because actually at the start of the season, I remember you coming on the pod and saying that it feels like people are starting to take on getting behind your song and singing it, and
Yeah,
it's becoming a bit of a good thing to have before kickoff, and it's interesting now to sort of almost have a little bit of a U-turn on that and be like, you know what, people aren't really bothering because the people generally aren't singing at Watford, really, are they? Apart from maybe like a minute after kickoff and after we score. But yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And I'd love for Watford to really embrace the whole Your Song thing and make it a real club anthem, like so many other clubs have got. But I just feel like the wind's been taken out of the sails of that because the football's poor on the pitch at the moment. The results
yeah,
aren't
I think
coming.
so.
Um, but yeah, there's for sure been a difference. And I think another interesting point about the attendance to make is that last season we were up in a lot of attendance statistics, with all the
Mm,
percentage of the ground filled, and we would always be on about 95, 96%.
yeah,
And it's interesting, to be honest, now I hear very little of those attendance figures from Watford
yeah, yeah,
reaching the top. And people can say, "Oh, it's coming down because of away fans," but if you look who come, a lot of the time they're bringing 1,800, 2,000 fans to the
yeah.
Vic. So it's definitely not.
Especially Saturdays, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely not the away fans that are not coming. Um, if anything, more of them are coming because they fancy the chances to get a win at the Vic. But yeah, I think the attendance is a dipping. But like you said, little bit of form for a little bit of something for the fans to get behind, and I'm sure that those attendances will shoot right up, and the Vic will
I
be
think so.
bouncing again for sure.
I think so, yeah.
So yeah, James, just a couple of little things before we finish off
Yes.
the podcast for this week. I'm absolutely buzzing for Kwadwo Baah. He scored again yesterday for Burton.
Yeah.
He's absolutely on fire at the moment, and yeah, I'm so pleased that loan is going so fantastically well for him.
Yeah.
And hopefully he can be a part of the squad next season and maybe feature in a few games, or we could find him another sensible loan to get him some more
Mm,
experience. But at the moment, it looks like he's going to be playing every game for Burton. So I think, but come the end of the season, he'll be a completely different player, which is
yes.
excellent for us. And then just to quickly touch on the Watford women, we're recording a little bit later than we usually are, aren't we,
Yeah.
James? And I'm just looking over at my phone,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
Watford are currently 5-1 down to Birmingham. So
Yeah. Not going well today
it's
for the Golden
no,
Girls.
it's not going well today, and yeah, it's not particularly um, going well in general for the Golden Girls at the moment, which is a real shame.
No.
Um,
That will be the fourth loss on the bounce
it will
and
indeed, yeah.
4 points from 8 games, which isn't doesn't look good.
No, it's a tough one, isn't it? There's a lot of big teams in that league, and more concerningly, I think there's a lot of bigger games coming up for the Golden Girls. The
Mm,
likes of Crystal Palace and Blackburn, and there's a couple of others up there which are going to be tough. But hopefully they can bounce back from this, or they go and score 4 goals in the last sort of 20 minutes of the game and get something
we
from
can
it.
only hope.
Yeah.
We can only hope.
But yeah, I think it was brilliant to have James's opinion on the Golden Girls, and I think definitely as a fan base, theirs is growing for sure.
Mm,
There's a lot more spotlight on the Watford women, on socials and just around the club as well. I think they're far more accessible to follow now, and yeah, I think it's
yeah.
brilliant. There's a lot more games that are available to stream on YouTube and stuff like that. So that's definitely a positive. I think maybe a few fans would even rather go and watch the Golden Girls at the moment than the men's team. So we got to keep supporting them, and as we do every season. Just I'm hoping that they can sort of rectify a lot of these these errors that are leading to a lot of losses at the moment. So fingers crossed for them. Hopefully they can string some results together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sweet. So anything you wanted to add, James, before we wrap up the podcast for this week?
Just a massive thank you to everybody that engaged with our last episode
Oh,
with
for
the
sure, yeah.
Watford Way. We really enjoyed it, and we had a great time filming it. Something different for us, something new for us. So it was really fun, really, really good experience, and it was just really nice, I think, just to have people say how much they enjoyed it. So we're glad that the listeners were as enthused by it as we were. So yeah, just a big thanks to everybody for sticking with us.
Yeah, for sure. And if I could just sort of echo that, yeah, it was amazing. It's a great experience. I think we could
Yeah,
both agree. Something we've never done before, to have a guest on the pod, but it was an absolutely flying success from our point of view. We loved having James on the pod, and yeah, we'd love to get some more guests on in the future. I think that's got to be the next step for us, right?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you very much for listening to the podcast this week. Unfortunately, it's ended up being a little bit more negative despite the win on Saturday.
That wasn't the intention, was
No,
it? No.
no, of course not. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your continued support at the moment. We've we really appreciate every single one of you that listens, every single one of you that gets involved in our tweets on Twitter or comments on the YouTube videos. We see all of that and we absolutely love all of it. So thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll see you again very soon. Take care, guys.
Come on, you Hornets. See you in a bit.